The 2015 Polyglot Gathering is brought to you by italki. Become fluent in any language.
Alright. So people will be coming in, but I'm going to start anyway. So I want to talk to you about how my story has evolved. So how I got from starting with YouTube, starting with blogging to where I am now. Essentially how to reach millions of language learners. Now this is, realistically it is millions of people. So this is a talk, an interview I did on Weekend Sunrise about 2 months ago. 5 million viewership. TEDx talks have, I don't know, like 1 million views or something. And then the book has reached, I don't know, 100,000 people, something like that. It's so there's a lot of people, and that's aside from, like on the blog, I got a million visitors a month. And on the email list, I have 115,000 people signed up who get my weekly newsletter. And then there's all this other stuff here that I've done. But essentially, and I'm a traveler. So this is a language learning community, but I consider myself a traveler at heart. I go around the world to try to get to know its cultures. And the National Geographic recognized this. I really appreciated that. That for me was a bigger honor than language ambassador and all these things. But essentially, what for me has been the point of all this, isn't it awards or numbers or newspapers or TV spots? It's making a difference in as many people's lives as possible. So you want to reach all these people, that's great, but are you going to influence them in some way? So how I know I'm making a difference is I actually do get hundreds of thank you emails a day. And this is from some video I've uploaded, or a blog post, or the book, or an interview I've done somewhere, where somebody will say that I just showed them it's possible to learn a language. And that's why I'm doing this, because I want to convince adults that they can learn a language. And I hear all these inspirational stories. And a few weeks back, somebody was telling me how they talked to their grandmother for the first time in their lives. And I've heard this before from other people, that they have talked in a language of their family, or they have finally been able to talk to their friend that they weren't able to communicate with properly. And these really, really cool things. That's what keeps me going, and that's why I want to keep doing this. And then the international book tour, I just went through 25 states in America, driving about 10,000 kilometers. I was all over Europe and Australia for 3 months, New Zealand, Singapore, many, many different countries. In each place, I was trying to meet people face to face, because that's what I want to talk about today, is the evolution, not just big on YouTube, big blogging. I want to get through to as many people through as many venues as I can, so people in person can be convinced in other ways. And I have gone out of my way to meet as many people, shake their hands, and give them some inspiration in person. So on the book tour, I've met everybody and tried to talk to them about their language learning problems and try to help that. So this is what I have done, but how did I get here? So you might know I studied electronic engineering. This is me on Eng Day in my university. I'm holding a charity box to try to get some money for building a well somewhere in Africa. And my philosophy with everything has been always problem solving. I am an engineer at heart to this day, even when I don't work as an engineer. And for instance, I brought back the most money that day because I was thinking about this. How can I get as much money in this bucket as possible? So I realized a lot of people were stopping at the traffic light. So I was like, okay, I'll stop at the pedestrian crossing by the traffic light. I got a little bit more, and then I started thinking, okay, instead of just shaking the bucket, because that's what everybody else was doing, I'd be saying, think of the poor, starving children in Africa. And you just try to test things out, you know? And that has been my philosophy. Keep trying, keep failing. I found when I did it too loudly, then people kind of were like, this guy's weird. And they wouldn't give me any coins, but I have taught about this for everything. Even in language learning, I use my engineering mentality, because engineers have to make something that works. It just has to work, and there is no such thing as perfection. When you study engineering, you study thermodynamics. You lose things through friction, through heat, and so on. So, and this means that a perfect system is not possible. So in my languages, I'm always thinking, okay, I can reach this stage and I can ship it. Imagine a new iPhone comes out every year. It's because there's no such thing as a perfect iPhone. Engineers have this target. They're going to tweak it a little bit, it's going to improve, and eventually it's going to be this iPhone. They'll ship it, and it's not perfect, but next year they'll make a new one. And that's what I try to do with languages and with my business. Ship it. So that's my engineering background, but of course, I only spoke English. You probably all heard me say this a billion times, but I moved to Spain, didn't speak any Spanish, lived there for a while and didn't learn anything. But got inspired by this guy. His name is Jorge, and he's from Brazil. He was my roommate in Valencia, and he was the first polyglot I ever met. So I'm 21 years old, and I meet this guy who speaks a bunch of languages, and of course I think he's a genius. And he's naturally born for this, or maybe he's just lucky that he grew up in the right environment, but he was very modest, and he's telling me, no, Benny, you can do this too. And I tried to do it. It took me a very long time. I tried many things that didn't work. I tried some things that kind of worked. And it took me a year and a half to finally get to a stage where I was kind of happy with my Spanish. So a very slow process. But I went through that, and I saw, as an adult, I can learn languages. So I realized this, and this is something that has stuck with me. I always see myself as a monolingual that has gotten into language learning. And this is a situation that I want to inspire other people to do, because in my situation, I hadn't heard so many stories of people who started learning languages in their 20s. And it's this kind of story aspect to it is more relatable. And that's what I ultimately want to share with people. It's the first thing I ever say whenever I give a speech, is that I was a failed language learner and I only spoke English when I was 21, because that gets through to people. You know, that shows them maybe they can follow a similar path. So after Spain, I went on to Italy, and I did a little bit better with Italian, upside down in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I moved on to France. I had a 9-to-5 job there, and that was a little bit harder because I was speaking English most of the time. But after that, I did a little bit better. So gradually improving my language learning for my own purposes, for my own benefit. And then I felt I was in a place where I could encourage other people. And I would do this generally at couchsurfing meetings, because I was a very active couch surfer. I've actually hosted over 2,000 couch surfers. Wow. Yeah. And I use couchsurfing as a means to practice languages. So I might host people from France if I want to practice French, even if I'm not in the right country. So I would meet all of these people, and they would say what I said to Georgie, and that's, you're a genius. You can do this because you've got the right genes. And I had to struggle, I had to feel like an idiot, I had to take a year and a half to get to okay Spanish, so I definitely argued to the death that I'm not a genius, that this is just about a clever approach to language learning. So I would tell people this one-on-one, face-to-face. Maybe if there were small groups, I tried to encourage them. But that didn't really get so far, it's not very scalable. So I started to think, okay, I'm onto something here. I can convince people when I'm talking to them to try to learn a language. But how can I do this on a bigger scale? And that's when I thought, okay, YouTube. I can start to upload YouTube videos. And my first ever YouTube video was, drum roll, Benny dancing with a frisbee on his head. It actually had nothing to do with language learning. This was just a test for me to make sure the YouTube channel worked. But what I did do for the YouTube channel for the first few years was documentaries. Because as a traveller, I wanted to show the culture of the places that I was living in. So for instance, this is the second video I uploaded where I talk about Speaker's Corner in London and the history about it. Because I found it very interesting. I wanted to share it with people on YouTube. That's fine, but after that I started to combine it with languages. I figured rather than just doing this in English, I can try to share this culture with people who may not speak English. So, if you open your brochures and you look at the very first page inside, you'll actually see this photo. And this is me on the top of Mount Teide in the Canary Islands, Tenerife. And I climbed up the mountain and I made a documentary about Mount Teide and how to climb it. And I uploaded it in Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, English, French, and Esperanto. And that video, and the way I did it logistically, because remember, an engineer, I can't climb the mountain 7 times. No. The easy way to do that was a voiceover. So I made the video footage, and then I made it so that I was syncing with whatever voiceover I was going to do, and then in the comfort of my home after doing it, I would do the recording in all these languages and then upload it. And that was great, and I was starting to get subscribers who weren't English speakers, who were interested in this, and this video was actually, they started to get other coverage. So this video was bought by the tourism board in the Canary Islands, and it was used to show the culture of the Canary Islands. It's not just for the beaches, but there's all these other things. So I was really pleased about that. But the problem is, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you would just get 7 videos in 7 different languages. And obviously, not everybody is going to speak these 7 languages. So I needed some way to separate that. And at the time, having multiple YouTube channels wasn't possible. As it is now, you can very easily create multiple ones. So this is why I started a blog. I started irishpolyglot.com, and the subtitle of the blog was Around the World in 80 Years. I'm 12 years into it now, so I don't know how I'm going to stick to that title, but this is why I started a blog. It was a way to syndicate, to separate. So if you clicked on any one of these, you would have seen the videos in just that language. And I kept this up for a couple of years. And that's how I started into the whole blogging thing. And I never thought I'd blog to write, because I didn't have a background in writing. It was just to separate my videos. But then I went back to my hometown. This is the house I grew up in, and this is in Cavan. Beautiful little garden, sweet little hometown. My girlfriend Lauren will tell you it's a very small town feel when you get there. And I went back here in 2009 because one way that I funded my travels for most of those years, I did do some freelance translating, I worked in youth hostels, I taught some English, but what I got most of my money from was teaching mathematics. Yep, I went back to my hometown and I would guarantee people, and I was just as encouraging in maths as I am in languages. I tell people you can do it. I would take a failed case, people who are, consistently get Fs, and I'd say, I promise you, you'll get at least a B in this exam. Just do what I recommend. And I got a little bit of a reputation in my hometown, so every time I come home, I have a lot of students, so I get a decent amount of money. So I went back, and that's how I funded a lot of my travels, teaching mathematics. So back in my hometown in 2009, I was thinking, okay, what am I actually going to do with all of this? Because at first I wanted to be a conference interpreter, and I followed the path similar to what Luca did. I wanted to interpret for engineering conferences. That didn't work out, so I needed to think, what else can I do? And in one afternoon, I had the idea that I've already learned these languages, and I've talked to people, and I've encouraged them, but I want to do it on a bigger scale. And so when I started the blog, this is not a case of me thinking, oh, I'll start a blog and just my mother will read it. I had in mind, I want to reach a lot of people. I want to try to encourage them. And the best way to encourage people I found was to share the story. The story of how I was learning a language so they get some inspiration from that. And that's why I started the blog, which is so beautiful. Look at it. That's right. This is what it looked like a couple of months after I started it. And it evolved with time, but I chose the title Fluent in 3 Months, which created lots of controversy down the road. I'll get to that in a second. But why Fluent in 3 months? Because I was going to Prague, and I wanted to reach fluent check in 3 months. I aimed for B2 level, and I wanted to share that story. So that was Fluent in 3 months for me, was part of my philosophy, because what I found a lot of failed language learners did in talking to so many of them is they had no specificity to their language learning goals. They just said, I want to learn Spanish. And they never went anywhere with that. So what a lot of people do, you'll talk to a lot of successful language learners here, they have specific goals. They aim for A1 level or A2 level. They aim to be able to give a presentation. Judith was saying before, she aims to be able to get by in a restaurant, to have nice conversations with people. She did that in Hebrew recently. So these are things that successful language learners do, and I found consistently unsuccessful language learners just try to learn Spanish. So I wanted specific target and specific deadline. That's what Fluent in 3 months represented. It could have just as easily have been conversational in 2 months or read a book in 6 months. It was something very specific. But in my life, 3 months was the timeline because I travel a lot. 3 months is the tourist visa limit. That's where the 3 months comes from. And fluency was a good goal. B2, I figured if I applied myself, I could probably reach that. And because I was aiming for it, it wasn't a claim. It was never me promising, follow these steps and you'll get fluent in 3 months. And that is where so much confusion came up with people, for many people, because they figure the title is like 6-pack ab in a weekend. You know? Follow my steps and you'll get there. And I've never once, in the 5 or 6 years I've been blogging, I've never once said that I'm prescribing a way for people to get fluent in 3 months. But of course, you see the title, you might think things without reading anything, so that caused some confusion. But ultimately, I stuck to what I was doing and I shared the stories to inspire people. So I kept having these 3-month projects and I kept just saying, I'm not recommending you do this, but if I try speaking from day one, I actually do get somewhere pretty quick. So maybe you could try this. So that's great. I started the blog. It started to get more and more traffic. But then I got my first viral spike. I made this blog post, how to read a phonetic script in just a few hours, because I had an intensive project learning some Thai. And I found that I could learn the 76-letter alphabet very quickly using mnemonics. And I got these ideas from Stu J Raj. And I referenced him in the post and everything. He gave a great mnemonic system, and I said, wow, this is clever. I want to share this with people. So I shared it, and it got a huge spike of traffic. It went viral on StumbleUpon. So this was my first taste of more people checking stuff out. You make an interesting blog post, but you also have some kind of personality to it. You'll notice this isn't a stock image. Like every time you read some random blog post, you might see someone looking at, it's raining $100 bills, you know. You see these really random images all the time, and every single blog post, every blog post I've written for the last 5 or 6 years always has a photo of me, every time. And that shows a little bit of personality, that this isn't a blog written by some random corporation, this is written by a human being. So, that's great. But how could I do this more? It was getting traffic, but I couldn't put so much time into it because I was still working as a translator. So I thought I'd love to do this as my career. I'd love to encourage people to learn languages full time. And I didn't know how to do this because I thought on websites you just put advertisements everywhere. And I didn't like the sound of that. I didn't want to push people off to all these things that I didn't know about. So I met some other bloggers. I met this guy, Chris Killable, when I was in Thailand. He's written a book, $100 Startup. And he gave me some interesting advice. He said, give people a guide, because my blog was the story. Like I said, I never told people do this, do that, do the other. It was always the story. So you didn't really find my actual advice for learning a language. So I created a guide, and if people bought the guide, then they would support the site. And I thought I might be able to work just half-time as a translator if I did that. So that was my initial plan, to just make it so I had a few more hours a week to be able to put into this blog. And so to launch it, I made this video. This video of me speaking the languages that I knew, talking about the language hacking guide, and trying to give it a bit of personality using all these, like the Big Ben for English, the Colosseum for Italian. And it was a fun video to make. It was my first attempt at one video in multiple languages, because before that, like I said, it was all voiceover videos. This is my first time speaking to the camera, and this changed a lot because the other videos never did so well. They didn't go super viral or anything, and it's because that personality was missing. You heard the voiceover and you didn't associate it with the face. So I started with this, and that worked, and I was amazed to see that people loved the idea so much that they helped support the site entirely, and I could quit my job as a translator and do this full time. So I moved on, the blog evolved, slightly prettier design, but still not getting there. I had this big banner telling people, get the guide, buy it, as soon as they arrived on the site. And people started telling me they don't like that, it makes the site feel cheesy and salesy, especially when you see the title, which you don't know if this is going to teach you how to do that. So I got rid of it. People told me they didn't like it, and I kept taking the feedback people were giving me and applying it to the site. So I did that with the site, and now I wanted to see how can I get through to people in other ways. So I saw there's this talk, TEDx and TED Talks, and I was thinking, how can I give a TEDx talk? And what a lot of people might think is, okay, maybe I'll just find a bunch of people who give TED Talks and write a really clever email and email them all the same email. And I get that a lot. In my inbox, I get a lot of people who just copy and paste the same email to a lot of different people and hope one of them works. I didn't do that. I was thinking, okay, let's figure out how I can get on this stage. So I researched the cities where TEDx's were happening in the next few months. I happen to be in the States. And it turns out San Antonio has the highest population in the States of Hispanics that do not speak Spanish. It's an interesting combination. There are people who look like they're from South America or Mexico or so on. Their family is, but they only speak English. And I realized that is something that I could actually play with. And I emailed the guy who ran this and I said, there's something about San Antonio I'm very interested in. I see there's a little bit of a problem learning Spanish, and especially for adults. And I'd really like to encourage those adults by giving this talk. And the guy happened to think that was a fantastic idea. And that's how I got the invitation. And another thing that you wouldn't know about this, if you ever watch it, people are always surprised when I tell them this, that was the first time in my entire life I spoke on stage. And even crazier than that, I didn't prepare anything. I just walked on stage and was like, so language learning, how am I going to talk about that for 16 minutes? Okay, let's do it. And yeah, you just got to give it a try. It's like I said, ship it. I didn't try to be perfect. I just walked on, and then eventually after 16 minutes, someone put up a sign saying 1 minute left, so I wrapped it up. So that was, yeah. People think, TEDx talk, oh my God, it's an honor. You must be preparing it for months. I was like, no, I just made it up on the spot. So this was a great chance to get my message out to more people. And I'm always thinking of different ways. So another one which I work on so much, you don't see this publicly, but you do see it when you join the community behind my site, and that's the email list, the Language Hacking League. I've 115,000 people on this, and I email them every week with the best encouragement, the best links. I have myself and actually a team of people who scour the internet for the most interesting language learning links that week, and we share them. And once a month, I share emails with people for the specific languages they're learning. The best links for Spanish, the best links for Japanese. We look for these, we share them with people. So this, obviously you don't see it on the blog, but this is another way to get through to people, and it keeps growing and growing, and I can encourage so many people with those lists. So everything was going amazing. I was getting through to all these people, but there's always going to be problems. So one day I thought it was finally time for me to learn Chinese. It's me on the Great Wall. I wanted to take on a Chinese project. So of course I said, I'm going to do a Fluent in 3 months Mandarin mission. And I thought nothing of it. I'll share this and people will find it interesting and it'll all be good. I uploaded the initial video and it had a 3rd thumbs down. And loads of comments saying, you're selling snake oil. You are misleading people. You are an arrogant... Blah, 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 blah. So lots of comments from people who are being kind of mean to me. And I was just trying to encourage people to learn languages. But the problem is, in the video, I just presumed people had read the blog and understood that this is just a story I'm sharing. But a lot of people are saying, how dare you claim to be able to speak Chinese in 3 months? That's not possible. And you're going to fail. And you don't want to hear that when you're starting a project. So I would argue back and say, no, I'm not going to fail. I'm going to try my best. Maybe I won't get it. I don't know. I can just, my aim is fluency in 3 months. And they'd argue back with me. And that was very hard because I've had tough projects. When you're doing a language in 3 months and it's your full-time commitment, it's very stressful sometimes. And when people are sending you mean comments, you might reply in an angry way, and that doesn't work because it's just going to create a circle of more viciousness. And it was even worse for me in this project because this was stressful for several reasons. I was in Taiwan all by myself. I didn't have any friends there. I was avoiding English speakers. I met with English speakers like 3 times maybe for the entire 3 months I was there. So I was saying I'm only speaking Mandarin for pretty much the entire time I'm here. And so it took me a long time to make friends because it's a very different culture. So I was very stressed out, and then people would send me negative comments, and I'd reply back angrily saying, "Argh!" And I'd be like punching my keyboard in frustration. And it was terrible, and that gave me a lot of stress and arguments with some parts of other communities and certain websites that the commenters in Link were especially enthusiastic with their discouragement. Not Steve Kaufman himself, but the commenters in his forum. And so I didn't know what to do because I just want to help people learn languages. I don't want to argue all this time. And then something happened that changed my perspective on this forever. I met up with Mike Campbell, who runs Glossica, and we recorded a video together. And he talked to me, and his Mandarin is pristine. If a Taiwanese person closes their eyes, they will think he's Taiwanese. His accent's amazing. So we've made this video, and I got the usual comments. Benny is full of, you know what, blah, blah, blah. And all these terrible things about me. And I was getting used to them at this stage. But then somebody said, in minute 14 and 30 seconds, Mike had the third syllable as a second tone instead of a third tone. And that level of nitpicking just suddenly made me realize that this is just all they're doing is they're just being negative. They're not actually doing anything else other than to try to get you down. And the thing is, these may not actually be terrible people. On my book tour, I met somebody and he apologized to me, and I was like saying, "Well, what for?" And then he told me his username. And I said, "Oh, I remember you now." He told me he was going through a rough patch himself. He was feeling kind of lonely and angry, and I was an easy target. I was. So ultimately, that's what it's about. That it's it's just one person hating another person, and it's a circular thing. So I learned that it's not that big a deal, and ultimately, haters gonna hate, you know? So I still get some negative comments, and I just think, okay, whatever, you know? Someone write me like a 17-paragraph explanation about why I'm the devil. And I'd be like, scroll, archive. All right, what's for lunch? You know? So that's the way you got to look at this. It's just people will be negative. If you want to reach millions of people, you're not going to reach millions of happy people. You're going to be, and it's so unfortunate. There's like 0.01% who may be mean, and those are the ones you'll remember. Unfortunately, and all the thank yous and all the nice comments, and that's why I eventually grew thick skin, and I just roll with it now. So it was a learning process for me going through that. So then I continued, and I started to think I got to meet all these other people doing this. So I just wanted to hang out with Moses McCormick in Columbus, Ohio, for a few hours, and the second I got in his car, he took out his iPhone and said, "Benny and me are going to level up." And I said, "We are?" Oh, wow. So we recorded this video, uploaded it, got on the front page of Reddit. And it went super viral. And people discovered Moses, they discovered me through this. It was amazing. And I saw that this isn't just something I should be doing myself. This is something that works better as a collaborative thing. Because I'm not the one who can change the world, it's everyone who has done this before, everyone who has their own story. So I wanted to think, how can I use what I've learned to try to get more language learners out there? So, of course, I started to record the Skype Me Maybe music video. That was a lot of work, but I got in touch with everybody. And one thing a lot of people don't know, I got in touch with Steve Kaufman, and I said, "Steve, I want to do a music video with you." At first he was reluctant, but then he suggested some change to lyrics, and I said, "Absolutely," because I didn't want this to be about speak from day one, about Benny's approach. I just wanted to encourage language learners. And he saw I was serious about this, and we've worked well together ever since. And that's the thing. Instead of thinking, competition, I'm right, he's wrong. I try to bridge the gap, and that's what this whole conference is about, us exchanging ideas, working with one another. And if you want to be able to reach millions of people, you can't do it alone. All right? So I moved on and I made these books, and the way that worked was I was approached by an agent when I was in the States, and he said, Benny, you should write a book. And I was like, dead tree books? No one reads those. And I turned them down. And I wasn't interested at first because I'd done internet and blogging and ebooks, and I didn't really see the point. But he got back to me over the next year, and he explained that a lot of people, believe it or not, don't actually watch YouTube or read blogs. You know, as big as they are. A lot of people still go into bricks and mortar bookshops and get a book and read it. And you can reach those people. And I realized I'm better at blogging, I like YouTubing, but I want to help other people. So I expanded and I said, okay, let's do this book. And I was very, very glad I did that. And they gave me a great advance, and I put all that money right back into encouraging people. I've used that to fund the last year and 2 months book tour, because I've had to take lots of flights, lots of accommodation, lots of car rentals, and all of that was funded by the advance that they gave me, so I could just encourage more people. You know, I was thinking, should I buy myself a DeLorean? No, because it's better to just put it back in. You know, if you get a business and it starts growing, you need to invest back into it. You know, and that's what I've been thinking the whole time. But like I said, you don't do this alone. I reached the stage just over a year ago where I found I am a bottleneck, and everything has to go through me. The 2,000 emails I get a day have to go through me. All of the things that have to happen on the blog and the design and all of this, I have to figure it all out. And I tried getting virtual assistants and, you know, hiring people for one job and doing that. And that was great, but then I figured it's time to make this an actual business because I can get other people to help me. So most of the things that are happening on the site now are happening as a collaborative effort with Team FI3M. So Lauren, you've seen her here. She runs pretty much everything. She tells me what to do. She gives me the to-do emails. She knows everything about how the site's running. She communicates with the whole team. Balint, that you'll see here, he is the site manager, and he checks that everything's working. And then Joe is Joe here is the language encourager. So when I get all these emails from people saying, Benny, I want to learn Spanish, what do I do? If I get 1,000 of those emails a day, I can't keep answering them. So I send them on to Joe. And Joe gives a very detailed answer to those people. So all of these together, all these people, help the site to grow. And that's what it's all about. You want to reach millions of people, you have to do it as a team. And it's been a fantastic learning process for me, and because of these people, I can grow even more. I can think of new ways, and I have great plans for the future to expand to things I haven't tried yet. New ways to reach people that I haven't reached, to try to give them the very basic message that you can learn a language as an adult. I did. Ask me anything about it, I'll tell you how I did it. And that little story helps. So, that is pretty much what I wanted to say in a nutshell, and I'm sure you have plenty of questions, so I want to make sure I can answer them. So can somebody help me with this microphone? Is there anybody? Yes? No. Appreciate it. So, any questions you got, hit me.
How much of the comments and mails you're getting, you're still reading yourself?
It depends, because I do get way too many to read in a lot of the funnels, but the emails that are sent to me, I always read them. Every email, every reply I get to my email list, everything that goes through the contact form on my site that it says it's for contacting me for particular things, I will read every single one of those emails. Sometimes what I have to do is I see, okay, Joe, my language encourager, he'd be good at handling this, and when he replies, he doesn't say, hi, I'm Benny. Of course he says he's Joe, and he explains, you know, Benny's busy, but I can help you with this. And then the YouTube comments, I have somebody to help me look at those and see which ones require a reply. Same with Twitter. I have someone who looks at all the tweets I get and tells me, Benny, you should reply to this one. So I do have people who help me, because There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much I can do, and I'm extremely busy. So I do have people to help me with the things that I can't just go on and check all of my tweets and all of the other things. But every email that's sent to me, I read it every time.
How much time per day you use for it?
Oh, it depends. The last year has been very crazy because one thing that I'm actually working towards now is having more free time. I haven't had weekends for months because a week ago we launched a bunch of new books about ebooks about encouraging languages. So I've been working 7 days a week, sometimes till 10 p.m. or midnight. So it's crazy. Even with all these people helping me, I'm still working like a madman. So I want to change that. Obviously, that's not ideal, but it's how I've been expanding the business. So I do too many hours a day right now. To answer your question, I'm looking to working like a full 6, 7, 8 hours a day, doing my time, and then having this weekend thing that people always talk about. You know? Next question, yes.
Yeah, thank you for the great talk, Benny. I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, how much time did you spend preparing this talk?
Very good. So this PowerPoint presentation, one of the people on the team there, Kidichai, he helps me with technical things. So I spent an hour writing a bullet point list of how I wanted to look and linking to the images, and then he made the PowerPoint presentation. So that hour I spent writing the email is what I did. And I didn't even know what I was going to say. I'm not following a script or anything. I just wanted to generally go in the right direction and make it up as I go.
So how do I get in touch with Kidichai?
He's mine. He's all mine. I'm not giving him to anyone else.
Okay, so my second real question is, as you know, I'm one of these people you met in Taipei on one of the 3 days that you were out speaking English. And
yeah.
I would admit that back then I really didn't understand your message. But since then I've read more of your blogs and your videos, and I really love this message and this cause. But for someone like me who is quite active in different ways, but I have this, for one reason or another, I don't want to be a public figure. I'm not you, and I love what you do, but I'm not someone who could be like you. How can I contribute to this cause?
Well, one way you can do it is one way that the whole team behind my site does it. You find somebody like Luca or Richard or anyone in the community who is comfortable being a public face, and you help them. Because there are lots of skills everybody has here that they can contribute in some way. You do not need to be the face. You do not need to be the person on YouTube giving the encouragement or the person on stage. But you can help. Like Lauren, for instance, she would hate to be giving a speech, but she helps me in so many ways that I could never do. She does so many things that help me to encourage so many language learners. She got me on Forbes magazine and all these things because she got in touch on my behalf, and she knows all of these ways of communicating with people that I never thought about. So that's something you could do. If you don't want to be the face, then you can see who is the face and how can I help them. Because like I said, working together is the way that you can reach as many people as possible. All right, next question's down here. Yes?
Hey there. Thank you so much, Benny. I couldn't help but notice that it seems like your team of folks that are working with you are all very international. So I was wondering if you had anything to tell us about how to keep those relationships you make when you're traveling, because it's so easy to lose them.
Yes, it is. So we have people living in Taiwan, in Thailand, in China, in America, and various European countries. So yeah, it's a very diverse team, and we use Basecamp to communicate with each other, and we have one place where people just share their stories, And I try to meet them as often as possible. So we meet Balint here, and on the way here, as some of you may know, you might have seen me complain about this several times, that I had a 33-hour flight to get here. That's right. I just came from New Zealand, and it was very. There you go.
33 is nothing.
It wasn't nothing to me, but it went through Bangkok. So we took the opportunity to meet up with Kidichai. Took him out for a drink and some food. And it's about personal relationships. And that's one thing about the team that we have, is I found that I don't want to just outsource it to some guy in India or something that just kind of barely does the task. Because we need people who are passionate about it. So if they're passionate about it, we're friends. And I don't consider them even though like they will earn a percentage of like what the site will make, I don't consider them employees because they tell me what I maybe should do. We help each other, you know, and it's all about that. And you want to make a team environment, you try to meet up with them. You try to say, so how was it? I saw you took the weekend to go cycling. Well, how was that? You know, you always talk to them like human beings. Yeah.
I would
Yes.
like to know, how do you finance your business? You're selling the books and you have this team, but do they get any wage or?
Yeah, because they work. They work, so
Is it enough to sell your books, or do you ask for any fees for the services?
for their
Yes.
service, they're not volunteers. They are paid. So because the site has expanded and it reaches more people, I can make more from the ebooks I'll sell and the consultations, and I do professional speaking sometimes. So I can earn from that, and then like I said, I don't want to maybe use this money to buy myself a yacht. I'll put it back in, and to put it back in, it doesn't just mean buying a prettier server for the website. I need people to be able to do hard work, you know. And there's only so much you'll get with volunteer work. I want people to be able to do this as a living, like I'm doing it. You know, it wouldn't be fair if I was like, okay, I'll be whipping you slaves while you work 80-hour weeks while I sip my mocktails on this beach. You know, it's I want to be fair, and I give them a fair wage as well. I don't give them minimum wage or anything. I want to make sure they're happy and doing well. Yes.
Thanks, Benny. Great talk. My question for you is, as you've got busier and busier, how have you managed to keep your language learning up?
Yes, that is a very big challenge. The last year, I have been mostly in English-speaking countries, and I've gotten very, especially like I said, I've been working 7 days a week till 10 o'clock or whatever. I haven't had so much time to maintain my languages, and it really makes me sad. Now, the good news is I have been able to practice my languages, because when I go to these book signings, people will come up to me and they'll say in Mandarin or in French or in German that I've inspired them to learn a language, and I'll be like, oh great, and tell me about it in German, and I'll keep that conversation up. So at these book signings I have, like every other day, some of the times we've been traveling, I get to use these languages. But of course, as you all imagine, a 2-minute exchange is not a way to maintain a C level in a language. So what I'm hoping now, like I said, that I'm reaching the stage where I'm pretty much on top of things. I have the team helping me. I'm working at normal work hours, and then I get back into maintaining my languages. So for the last year, my focus, and I am someone who likes to focus on things. I don't like to spread my attention. I can do one thing at a time. And the last year, my purpose for existing has been to meet with people and encourage them to learn a language. So that means that my maintaining my languages has dropped a little bit. So now, for the next year, I'm hoping to be able to actually focus on maintaining my languages. So that's why I won't be taking on a new language for the next year, because I want to really practice the languages I know. I thought I might be able to do it while I was traveling on the book tour, but realistically, I prefer to put all my energy into one thing. So I'm finished the book tour essentially on Wednesday. On Wednesday, I'll be signing in Dussmann, which for me is a huge honor, because when I started learning German in 2010, I came here and I went into Dussmann and I bought some beginner German books, and I was actually scared to talk to the clerk who sold the books, because I was afraid if he talks to me German I won't know what to say. And I've gone from there to giving a book signing in the bookshop. So I'm really pleased, but then that's going to be the last stop for a while. So I have so much more free time, and we're traveling in Europe now. So I'm going to get to use my German for the next week that I'm here. We're going to be in France for a few weeks, so I get to practice that. So I'm actually going to finally be using these languages. I'm taking Lauren to the Gaeltacht in Ireland. So we're going to spend a week there practicing Irish. And so I can't wait, because I've had to take a break from using my languages to get what I wanted to get done well. And now I'm going to get back into it. And next year, for the next Polyglot Gathering, I'll be in the Polyglot Conference in New York. I'm going to spend a few months there. New York is the most multilingual city, so I'm going to get to practice all my languages. So I'm really looking forward to the next months, because I've worked so hard this last year, and now I can kind of reap the benefits of it and have the time to put into using my languages.
Good luck.
Yeah. Another question there.
Thanks, Benny. That was really interesting. You speak a lot of languages, and your blog covers loads of languages as well. I was just wondering whether you find it, in terms of sort of engaging your audience, whether you find it easier to engage with people when you're talking to them about the languages that you have sort of personally experienced learning, or whether you think it doesn't really matter that you haven't studied the languages maybe that they're learning specifically, and that your message kind of appeals anyway.
Yeah, well, on the blog, when I have my language stories, they would of course be about one language, and I'd have 3 months where I'm just writing about Hungarian. And that's kind of not going to be as interesting to other people, but I don't care, because there's all these Hungarian learners I can inspire. But what I found the right balance now, because like I said on my email list, I put a lot of work into, every Friday we email the links that work for encouraging everybody. So there's a lot of bloggers here who blog about language learning, and I'm always trying to share their stuff, because I finally got this audience. Like I said, I don't need the spotlight always on me. I want to share all of the great stuff they're writing about. So I'll be linking to their blogs, because they'll write something that's relevant not just to people learning French or Chinese, but to language learners in general. So I'll do that every Friday, and then once a month I'll write to just people learning Italian, just people learning Esperanto, and I'll try to give them a couple of the best links and so on. So I found a pretty good balance on the email list. On the blog, it's different because it comes sequentially. There's only so much I can do with it. But I try as much as I can to think, how can I get this to be inspirational for more people? And you have to write it more generally. But then it's more useful if you write specific tips about a specific language. So I would just mix and match if you can and see what works best for you.
Thank you for a great talk. Your passion for sharing language learning with others is obvious, but I'm wondering if you can articulate a little bit more. What did the realization that you could learn a language when you believed that you weren't good at it really do for you? Because it's clearly been a transformational experience. So if you could talk a little bit more about that, would be great.
Sure. Well, one thing, when I look at language learning, I see language learning as a means to an end. So when I'm studying a language, I'm not thinking to myself, oh, my mouth is salivating, the subjunctive, I love it. I'm not the kind of person that thinks like that. I'm thinking, I got to learn these words fast so I can get out there and use them. And that's always for me the end goal. Is I want to be able to read this novel in that language. I want to be able to meet these people and speak to them. Or maybe I want to pass this exam. Whatever it may be, I have my end goal in mind. So I'm not actually passionate about learning the language itself, but I know a lot of people are, so I try to kind of mix and match the balance between them. But I did, that realization, I still remember the day I realized I could speak a language. It was, I've told some people this story, but when I was in Spain, I had bought an electric toothbrush and it broke. And this was 2 weeks into my most successful idea of only speaking Spanish. And so my toothbrush broke, and I was so annoyed. I spent €5 on that electric toothbrush, I stormed down to the supermarket, and I was ready to complain, and then I realized, I'm in Spain and I don't speak the language very well. And I kept like, I was like, diente machina no trabaja. Tooth machine not work. And I was getting everything wrong, but the guy understood me. And despite my Tarzan Spanish, I got my money back. So this is when I had the moment they say in Spanish, cambiar el chip, when I changed my entire perspective on everything, and I realized I can speak Spanish. I'm not speaking it perfectly, but I can achieve something. And that was for me the whole point, that it's not about speaking it perfectly. It's about doing something with the language. Do I have enough to get my point across and get the gist of what they're saying? That's the first thing I want to do. And that is something I've always tried to share with people, this idea of not being a perfectionist. I'm a proud imperfectionist in language learning. So that for me was probably the moment. We've only got 2 minutes left. So, we got a quick question.
I'll defer to the non-English speaker.
All right, your presentation
inspire me a lot. It's so touchy. I feel like sometimes I want to cry. In a good way. Okay, my question is, how do you inspire yourself and get new ideas to encourage people in your blog? Because after doing this for many years and you have to upload it, like some things just once a week and something once a month, maybe you would be kind of like, oh, I don't know what to write. I tried that technique already. How do you get yourself inspired, get new ideas?
It was very hard during most of my travels to keep inspiration coming, and I got at first a lot of inspiration from other bloggers. So I actually follow some blogger friends of mine who don't blog about language learning. A friend of mine, Steve Kaufman, blogs about fitness. His blog is nerdfitness.com. And I follow his blog, and I realized that the way he's writing about fitness, I can actually use that idea for a language learning post. So that's one way, but I tell you, these days I get so much inspiration from the team. I'll say, guys, I don't know what I want to write about, and they'll give me brainstorming of all these amazing ideas, or I'd say, I don't know how I'm going to do this, and they'll give me ideas, or they'll just come up with the ideas. I won't even need to ask. So, like I said, a team is the way forward. If you have a blog, try to have some kind of a mastermind and meet up with other people and share ideas, and that's the best way to do it. So I think we're out of time now. Yeah, all right, so thank you everybody. Thanks so much.